Well, I just got back from seeing an early viewing of the new Ridley Scott movie, House of Gucci, and I feel like this movie is the type of film that has all the right ingredients there, but I don't think is properly mixed and balanced all that well. I feel like all the actors in this movie, for the most part, do a really great job. I think Lady Gaga and Adam Driver are really the elements that hold this film together and make it work as much as it can. I feel like the relationship in the film is the most compelling aspect of this, and I actually think the movie for about the first 40 minutes is actually really great. I kind of like the dynamic that they have between each other and their relationship. I feel like the relationship between these two is just the most compelling part of this movie. They're kind of just the toxic relationship between each other and how much you don't really know how much she genuinely cares for this guy and how much she's just manipulating him to get her way. And I found like the first 40 minutes of this movie actually very compelling, just kind of seeing the progression of their relationship. But I feel once you get more into the second act of this movie and they start kind of trying to take over the company, the story becomes a bit more muddled, and I felt like this movie did have a tendency to drone on a bit. This is almost a 2 hour and 40-minute movie, and you definitely feel it with this one. Like, I'd say I was still actively engaged with the movie throughout. This isn't like an eternal situation where I was like snoozing throughout the whole movie. But at the same time, scenes sometimes just drone on a bit too long, and there are just elements of the movie that I think kind of get too much focus, while others could have used a bit more focus. Like, I think that relationship between those two is very strong until the story gets kind of pulled in a bunch of different directions, and I feel like a lot of things just kind of separate the two of them in the story and doesn't really allow that relationship to like kind of go its natural course. And like at the end, like the conclusion of the movie just didn't really feel earned to me. And to be fair, some of that is just them trying to follow actual historical events. Like, them being separated throughout that movie is following stuff that actually happened to these two. But at the same time, just as me trying to enjoy this movie as a movie, I kind of thought separating the two of them for such a large chunk of the third act really kind of just took away the most compelling aspect of the movie. I also think a lot of the other members of the Gucci family get a bit too much focus for a role that I don't think is too pivotal when it comes to the end game of the movie. Like, Adam Driver's uncle and cousin, played by Al Pacino and Jared Leto, really just didn't need as much focus and as much screen time as they need. I feel like they were given more scenes basically because it's Al Pacino and Jared Leto, and they're big names that you want to give more screen time to, but in the end, they kind of play a more superfluous role that didn't really need to have as much devoted to them. Like, yeah, they serve their purpose. They're not like completely useless. They need to be in the movie, but I feel like a lot of their scenes just drone on a bit too long. I'd say this is especially the case with Jared Leto, who they try to give a more comedic role to, and it just doesn't really work for me half the time. Kind of like Jared Leto himself, he's kind of a bit hit and miss when it comes to his performance. Once again, it's a very goofy performance from Jared Leto that he probably took way too seriously when they were making this movie. I'd say for other positives for this movie, the movie looks amazing. I feel like they nailed the look and tone of these decades super well. They did a great job recreating the clothing, especially the different Gucci lines throughout time. I think they nailed that. The soundtrack was really great and really helped transport you to this environment. And once again, I think the first act of this movie is very strong, and I like the dynamic between the two characters. I just wish we saw more of that continue to be developed throughout the movie, because it feels like the movie just keeps separating to a bunch of different branches that really don't go anywhere, and a lot of things just don't really feel earned in the end. I'd still recommend this movie. I'd still say it was very entertaining, and I enjoyed the performances, and there's enough of this that I got out of it that I wouldn't say it was not worth seeing. But in the end, it just didn't really come together as strongly as I thought it could be. I would probably give this around a 6 out of 10. It's not a movie I would definitely jump out to go see, but I definitely think it's a movie worth seeing at some point. But the movie will be coming out this Friday, and if any of you get a chance to go see it, please write in the comments what you thought, if you agreed or disagreed with me, and I'd be very interested to hear what you guys think, and I'll catch back up with you guys next video.